Welcome to, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Friday Night Live, I guess. Good to see you all. Appreciate you guys all for being here. Just felt like streaming tonight. Found out DJ wasn't streaming, so here I am. And let's see who is here. Steven Cicero was here. Had a pretty good excuse for not being here. His daughter's play. Hope she does well. Wish her well. Mass Boost is here. DJ Mines, Cook 4015, Travelers Travels, Crypto Crag, Gaming with Smokey Dan, who has blessed me with that music. Appreciate it. Crypto Tito, Ka Valley Crypto, All Set, Black Hat Team, Vinny Del Greco. Let's see who else is here. Black Hat Team, Travelers Travels, Triple Nickel Technologies. And I have a feeling people are just kind of still trickling in, although not used to having me stream on Friday nights, so people may be a little confused. So yeah, it's been an interesting last couple of days. So we will get into that in a little bit. But couple of things that have changed this week. One thing, I got a headrest for my chair. I have a Steelcase Leap V2 chair, and there were two places that had headrests, and was able to finally find one that actually had it in stock. The other place was the one where I bought the chair from, but they consistently didn't have stock, and every time that they would get it, and by the time I get there to order it, it would already be out of stock. So it was very, very popular item. This one was as well, but oh, so nice. So not only is this my desk chair, it's also my nap chair. So there you go. So definitely very, very happy about that. When I do my next fundraising live stream, I'm still kind of trying to figure out what I'm going to do. I mean, I know what the charity is going to be, but as far as how long I'll go, and I might do like a 36 hour. So one where I'm not going to try to go straight through 36 hours. I'm going to take a nap so you guys can watch me sleep for at least a little bit. But we'll see. That's, I need to get to 10,000. I'm at 9,400 now. But I need to get to 10,000. That is when the donate button unlocks for YouTubers. So that makes it much, much easier for anybody to donate because they'll be able to donate directly to the charity, just like a super chat, as opposed to having to redirect people to the website, although that will be available as well. But anyway, not here to pump that or anything, but just some things that are going on. I actually cleaned up my desk a bit today. It's not perfectly clean, but it is definitely a lot clearer than it has been. And I meant to list my Octominers today. I never got to it, but I have two X12 Ultra Octominers that I am looking to sell. So if anybody's in the market for one, hit me up. Certainly will be giving a deal on those. Those aren't garnering that much. Somewhere in the range of $200 to $350, somewhere in that range. Hoping I can do it local. I really don't want to ship those. But anyway, that's what's going on. Do I still I have one box to send one in. The other one, I actually brought the GPUs, because I actually went there to take my one Octominer that I had, and then I brought the other GPUs with me, and there was an Octominer waiting that somebody else who had been hosting there was selling. So I bought that one. I actually bought it for $350 actually, so that I could host at Terra with two Octominers, 24 GPUs. But like I said, I do have one of the two boxes, but not the otother one. Game of Smoking Dan says, I just want the fan controller, as taking forever and a day to get a third-party one with a fan hub, but that Octo one will do everything. It's interesting you mentioned that, because when I was looking at eBay today, I noticed that there was, nobody was like just parting out their Octominers, but it did make me think, maybe I should just part it out. I might get more for it. Because there was somebody who was selling the motherboard for $80, another person that was selling like the add-on board for $80. And I'm like, if you just part it out, I'm thinking I would get a lot more for it. So that has crossed my mind, but then I got to figure out what the heck to do with the case. Although some people may want the case as kind of like a server case, and then they will just build it out from there. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It's intriguing. It's intriguing, to think about doing that instead. Let's see. Game of Smokey Dan, nap chair, you say, but can you mine on it and download songs? No, I cannot. It doesn't do that, but it's amazing at how expensive this thing is. It was $139. Now again, a very, very specific thing, but it was cheaper than the other one. The other one was like $187. I was like, but honestly, totally worth it. Completely worth it. Have had a few naps in this chair already, and it's as I've been home from work the last 3 days. So yeah, it's been completely worth it. Getting some sound sleep as opposed to like trying to slouch down in the chair and then rest my head on the edge of the chair. Not very comfortable at all. Yeah, and this week, holy cow, this week was a really good week for compute. I haven't even looked what my final amount was. Let me actually bring it up over here. I know it was a record week. I'd never made this much doing compute on Vast. And that was actually last night at midnight. Comcast went down for over an hour, and I lost a lot of jobs. I did not, they didn't stay when you have that long of an outage, but I was able to back up most, either the same job or replacement jobs. Hard to tell. But my earnings this week were $654. You know what I haven't checked yet though is how much power did I use over the last 7 days? Let's see. Emporia. We're going to update later. And let's go to the week. So total was, hold on a second. Let me think for a second. Yeah. 949 kilowatts. That's not right. That's got to be 900. I am so confused. Let me look at the day. That's what I usually look at. So that's okay. No. Okay. Got it. So I did 949 kilowatt hours is not right. 949 watt hours? No. Yeah, because that's 8.8. Yeah, 949 kilowatt hours. Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry. Don't know what I was thinking. So 949 kilowatt hours times, let's just say 11 cents. It was probably less this week. Or this weekend, the previous month. But let me do 949 times 0.11. So about little over $100. I guess I could probably done that math in my head. But yeah, a little over $100. So netting over $500, I'll take it. And that of course includes all of the power in the home. So this isn't just from, and actually this includes salad, which I didn't even add in. But yeah, it was definitely a really, really good week for compute. Let's see. Game of Smokey Dan, scrap metal, get paid to scrap. Yeah, I was thinking about that. I mean, it is made of steel, so it probably would pay at least a little bit to scrap it. And it certainly would probably be a lot better of a deal than trying to ship it, except for the one that I have the box with. But I don't know. Curious. Financial failure. Good to see you, sir. Yeah, pretty good idea for the case. Maths again, damn it. We had a hard enough time with Panda failing at maths. Yeah, he was failing at maths. I was having to help him today, which I kind of had to chuckle with. I started to try to go into the website so that I could get to like how to figure out. See, here's the thing. He was so focused on. So let me back up a second. Let me set it up for people that didn't watch. So Panda's on a power with a power company that has a tiered program. So the more power you use, the lower the rate. Except you get charged a demand charge. So you'll get charged for the highest amount that you use during that period of time. So like for instance, let's say it's $1 demand charge and the highest amount you use is 20 kilowatt hours or 20 kilowatts. That's like the highest like instantaneous amount that you use. Well, they would add on another $20 for the entire month. That's what he also has. But again, us being miners or compute, our power output is pretty steady. So whatever that highest is, it's pretty much what we're going to use all the time. So, but I wanted to be able to factor that in because the more power that you use, it seemed like the higher that demand charge was. So if you just looked at the rate, the hourly rate, you're like, oh my God, you're saving a ton of money if you use all this power, when in fact it's going to be a little bit less than he thinks he might be saving. So anyway, I need to go back and rewatch that video so I can get the link. And actually, I was going to make a spreadsheet for him so that he can just stick numbers in. But we'll see. Game of Smoking Net says, I would say fan hub $20, fans $40 for all, or $10 each, board $80, PSUs $80 to, oh, it's right, because those are server power supplies, 1200 watts, $80 to $120 each, cables 10 to 15, but I'm sure you will work out a better pricing. Yeah, I mean, I can look it all up, but that really makes me think totally would get more for it by parting it out. You know, the fan hub, $20. I think you're just giving me that $20 because that's what you want. But that's 60, 70, yeah, 70. Each of the boards, I think it'd be 80 each. So that's 230. And then let's just say an average of 100. So that's like over $500 by parting it out before I even get to the cables. Interesting. Yeah, I know, Yusuf. I know. No. So are you also that Snake Cliffskin or something like that? Is that also you? Because I know you were on Panda's stream with that ID, I think. Either that or somebody else is doing the same thing you're doing. One of the two. Rizzo529 is here. Wait a minute. Is it a different Rizzo? Oh no, he was my latest super chat. So thank you for being my latest super chat, Rizzo. I appreciate that. Hopefully you will get it soon. I'm sure they will send it. Yeah, I'm sure they will. It just takes a little while. Yeah, people will buy the fans up for sure, including me. So yeah, now I'm thinking it might just be easier to part the things out, honestly. I hadn't actually thought about that until we started this stream. But, well, I shouldn't say that. I did have a glimpse of a thought because I started looking at the parts and I was kind of like, huh, interesting. Game was smoking in. Shh. Let's see. What else are you guys saying? HP 1200 watt PSUs sell for $20 each or $35 for a bundle of 2, and that's generally shipped. Oh. So not $100. Well, that would kind of change the equation just a bit. Just a bit. Let's see what else we got. Yusuf is blocked, Max. Oh, on his stream. Got it. I'm like, well, you're not blocked here because you're posting. Let's see. Yeah, I figured it out. Like I said, it was so similar. I'm like, it has to be. Has to be. Good. Oh, good middle of the night, wherever you are. Maria Devil, where are you from? I'm guessing you're from Europe if you're saying the middle of the night. That would be my guess. Maybe Eastern Europe. Gave me a smoky Dan. The extra cost is for Max sticker on them and flannel wrapped. I'm thinking the flannel wrap would have to come off. Those things would, you don't want to keep the heat in. Definitely don't want to keep the heat in. Let's see. All right. Sweden. Nice. Nice. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there was anything else that related to crypto. Oh, I did have one other thing. Let me bring this up real quick. So I've talked a number of times about what I do with trading in crypto. And I'm going to show you a really good example of why I do what I do. Because this is not the first time this has happened. Because I love when things are trading in a range and try to do as many round trips as I can, basically about 10%. Because that's typically what you're going to find, 10 to 15%. I try not to get greedy, try to be able to take advantage of the profits and then wait for it to come back down. So I buy at a set price. I set it about 10% higher, a sale. And then when that sells, I go right back, try to buy back at that same point. So last night, again, it's a little unusual, but this was what happened last night. And then I bought back in this morning. So I had bought Filecoin at 2.77 a few days ago. And then I had a sale at 3.02. Now, oh, and here you can see it just barely broke above 3.02. Depending on the chart, it shows that it could have gone much higher. Now, I was trading at Kraken, and Kraken's chart showed it went up to like 3.6, like a complete spike. So unfortunately, I didn't set it higher. That would have been nice. But yeah, I sold it at 3.02. And then this morning when it was down at 2.76, I bought back. So so basically it's currently at where I bought it back at this morning, but I think it'll go back above 3 again. So that's what I've been doing, and it's been working pretty well. Obviously there's been certain things that I've been putting like longer term sales on, like for instance, Ethereum. Right now Ethereum, I have one at like 2,400 and one at like just over 2,500. And then I have like a longer term holding. So I think it'll eventually get to 4,000. Gaming is smoking at no for packaging. I'm not sure what you're saying there. Were you asking me if I had packaging and now you're saying no? Like I don't have packaging? I have packaging for one of the octominers. That's it. So anyway, sorry, going back. But no, I've been doing a number of round trips. The ones I've been doing it on, Solana, that didn't get high enough for me to sell. So I'm actually down a little bit. I bought it like 126. Last time I checked, it was at 122, I think. Let's see. Yeah, 122. So I'm still down a little bit on that one. What else did I buy? I mean, I did on Caspa, I had set up a buy at 0.058. I don't think it ever hit that. I know I had it there for a short period of time and then decided to put it into something else. I'm drawing a blank on the rest of them now. Let me go to my watch list. So like I said, I mean, I have some Bitcoin in there as well. I have some Litecoin in there. Litecoin's a little bit longer term hold though. Let's see. Chainlink is the other one I'm trading. This one I'm not doing as good on. This one I was in at 13.77. And so I'm down a bit on that. Litecoin, I'm definitely down on. Again, that was a longer term hold. Polkadot, I am in at like 3.98, I believe. And I have the sale like up at about 4.4. So we'll see what happens there. I'm trying to think. And then Filecoin. Oh, and then I also bought some Flux. I wanted to trade a little bit of Flux. It's not that much. But yeah, I'm in at like 0.22 something and at 0.25 something. But I truly believe that I think this will do better. So I knew there was something I just thought of something I was going to research before I was on tonight. I was going to show something, but I'll save that for Sunday. Cause I'm not sure, what the answer is. So I'll have to research that later. I was going to research that at dinner. Went out to dinner at a local place called Mo Euros. It's a nice little place. It's not like, Cheers, but it is like Cheers because when we go there, it feels like home because they know who you are. And that, but it's a, strip mall, hamburger, hot dog, gyro place. But it makes really good food. And like I said, the atmosphere is good. I had a guy there that said I did not look like Alec Baldwin. I looked like Kurt Russell. So I don't see it, but he thought I looked like Kurt Russell. Go figure. Gave me a Smoky Dan. The flannel wrap used for packaging. Sorry, I should type everything. But anyway. Actually, I do have the flannel that is on that GPU right there. Traveler's Travel sent the rest with it. So it's currently on top of a table that is holding the Octo server right now. Has been for, about 8-9 months at this point. Something like that. So it's certainly not letting out any heat below. It's pushing all the heat up. But anyway. Alrighty. See if I can get you drunk tonight, Gaming with Smoky Dan. That will be the goal. That will be the goal. Let's see. Any other things you guys are tagging me in? Litecoin is the right coin. Absolutely. They've been calling them dino coins, and dino coins are meaning dinosaurs. Dino coins are making a comeback. They're doing well. And obviously Bitcoin being the big daddy of all the dino coins. Good luck. I don't drink booze. Well, good for you. I drink occasionally. I haven't drank though since I started eating the way I'm eating. I don't usually like to call it a diet because I didn't get on it to lose weight. It just so happened that was why that it made me lose weight. So, never stopped GPU mining. Well, good for you. Good for you. All right. Well, I know I definitely wanted to talk about this tonight, and it's been going. I think whoever we're going to get here tonight is pretty much here, is my guess. So, yes, the markets are in free fall. And when I say that, I mean the stock market. And I know that Mass Boost had said, well, look, Bitcoin's up 1.67%. Well, yes, it was. Or yes, it is. Let's see what it is right now, actually, since I still have this up. Go back to the top. It's up 1.06%. Or 1.08%. And obviously, it's going to fluctuate. So not up a whole heck of a lot. But here's the thing. Again, just because, Bitcoin's going to be a lot more volatile and there's a lot more at play. So if you look at the month for Bitcoin, it's basically 84 from about 91. So down about 6.76%. Obviously, it had been down much greater than that. And this, again, is supposed to be in its bull run. So, yeah, I would expect it not to be down as much as a market that is, having some very direct impacts by our current president and what he is doing. So, but if you look at like the S&P 500 chart, again, if you look at it, it's down 12%. So again, you have to look at it over the long term, not necessarily what it's immediately done. But yeah, the S&P is down 12% over the last month. Definitely not good. Not good at all. So it's going to be real interesting because there's a couple of things at play. Obviously, we know the tariffs. We'll go into that in a little while. But the key thing is the value of the dollar. If the value of the dollar goes down, then obviously the price of everything against the dollar will actually go up. So I think that's how it works. Let me think about that for a second. I might have that backwards. Now I'm thinking I might have that backwards. Sorry. But there's so many things that come into play with what the value of Bitcoin and value of crypto, because crypto usually does well in a decreasing interest rate environment. And there are those that think that we will not head into a recession, but the economy is going to slow down so that the Fed will decrease interest rates. That is part of it. The other part of it is the fact that everybody was getting out, running scared from the stock market, and they had to put the money somewhere. So I haven't even actually looked to see what bonds are at. Let's see if there's a bond index that I can look up. I'm sure it's higher because of flow of money. Let's see. S&P 500 bond index. You're going to show it to me. So if we look at, let's look at it from, seriously? The shortest you have is month to date. Well, that's actually surprising that even the bonds went down on Friday. So 520 down to 518, although that's still pretty, that's barely at all. But the day before, when it had dropped so much, yeah, that went up. So most likely people are putting their money in money markets or cash instead of reinvesting into most everything else. If you look at bonds though, they certainly are slightly higher over the last 2 days, 518.68, 518.76. I mean, that's so marginal, but they didn't lose anything. But I'm surprised. I actually thought that was going to be higher. I had not looked at this before we went on. Now this is S&P 500. Let me look at US bond index, because maybe that's where it went into US bonds. So let's see, let's go 5 days. That'll be so much easier. So April 1st was 10.44. What? You only go out there to the second? Well, that's not right. That's not right at all. Let's see. That's aggregate. I want US bond benchmarks. Let's try that. Again, not charts. These are just current prices, which that's no good. No good at all. No good. Come on. US core bond. Let's try this. All right, so it was up 0.1%. Can you give me a chart? There we go. There's a chart. Let's go to 1 month. Yeah. So yeah, it's been since, let's see. Yeah, that's the 3rd and that's the 2nd. So yeah, on Friday with the big steep decline, yeah, everybody's going to safety. Everybody's going into US bonds. So that is a decent size increase. I don't know what the average, what's the word for it? Maturity is on these. I'm sure I can figure it out, but I'm sure this is somewhat of a blend. Oh, here we go. 1 to 10 year, 1 to 3 year, 1 to 5 year. And again, all of these went up. I mean, we're talking about bonds here. To have them go up by 0.5% in a day is pretty darn significant. Let me actually look at this, see if there's a chart for 10-year bond rates. Chart 10-year treasury yield. There we go. Let's see. See if they give me a chart. So yeah, basically at 4%. So you can see it dropped from, 4.369 down to 4%. Obviously, that's going to help mortgage rates to a certain extent. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, definitely making more people go into bonds. Now, there's been those people that have been saying, yeah, we needed that money from the stock market to go into the bond market to lower effective interest rates, regardless of what the Fed does, so that it lowers interest rates on mortgages and lowers interest rates on business loans and things like that. I don't think it affects business loans a whole heck of a lot. It does affect mortgages. They generally run right hand in hand. Now, with that said, a sudden drop does not equal in mortgage rates. Mortgage rates look at the volatility and they will not follow as quick. Now, if it stays around 4% for another week or two, mortgage rates are going to slowly drop about an equivalent of that 0.4% that it just dropped. But it's going to take a little while. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But obviously, the big trigger on all this was Trump's announcement of the tariffs on Wednesday. And holy crap, that was a shit show. There have been, and hey, no pun intended, been a number of conservative pundits, conservative YouTubers that have basically voiced their displeasure, basically by saying that the president is pretty ignorant when it comes to world trade and how it works. And so one of the guys, I'm going to show a portion of the video. It's like an hour-long video. I'm not going to show that much of it, but I am going to show probably about 20 minutes of it. Because it's extremely relevant, and Ben Shapiro we don't see eye to eye. He is definitely a right winger. He is. I'm more centrist. He is not, but he is not stupid. I've never said that about him. We just have a difference of opinion on a lot of things. But when it comes to things like this that are factual, where there is history, we agree completely. So I am going to play that video. In fact, I need to turn on desktop audio. Let me know if this ends up being too loud. Yeah, it's probably going to be too loud because it's catching a lot of background noise. Oh, you know what? That's probably the music that I had off. Oh, you know what? That's what it is. It's doubling the music. Let me turn off the music. Yeah, I'm going to mute the music on that one. And then, yeah, and then let me know what the volume's like. So I have it queued up to like 2.5 minute mark. So, oh, you know what? I need it back to 230, not 235. That's good enough. All right, let me know if you can hear it.
Seems to be predicated. His giant tariff policy that he just dropped on the market unilaterally, probably unconstitutionally yesterday. And I'll get to that in a moment. It's predicated on a few false notions about the American economy. One is that the American economy has been a giant fail for the last 40 years. That is simply not true. This is a myth that is propagated by both parties. And I know it's a fun myth. It's something people like to believe, is that yesterday was economically better than today. And then you look at all the stuff around you, and you look at the phone in your pocket, and you look at the computer before you, you look at the internet, you look at the fact you can literally order any product at any time from anywhere on earth, and it arrives at your doorstep in 2 days at a price you can afford. And you think to yourself, would I rather live in 1980 when the only person with a cell phone was Gordon Gekko on a beach holding a shoebox to his head? When central air conditioning was kind of a rarity.
I wouldn't go that far. Central air was pretty common, but whatever.
When the cars, if you were lucky, had electric windows. Okay, was that like better? Were things better?
Sorry, I got to comment on that. My mom had a Ford Escort, a 2000 Ford Escort. And my son, when he became driving age in 2011, right? Yeah, 2011, he was driving that car and it had manual windows. And his friends were like, oh my God, this is so cool. It's got manual windows. He was the cool kid for having an old Ford Escort wagon, gold, old person car, because it had manual windows. I still think that's hilarious. All right. Sorry, I'll go back to it.
On an economic level, forget about everything else. I can make a case about the spiritual level. You can make a case about the dissolution of the family. I agree with many of those cases, but we are talking here about economics. We're not talking about the life of the spirit within. We're talking about economics, which is the distribution of goods and services. So I need to start by showing you a few charts that show you that America, in fact, does not suck and has not sucked for several decades economically. Because this is a myth that all politicians like to tell. Hey, number one, there is this notion that American deindustrialization has been happening. That America has been hollowed out by deindustrialization, that we are not actually manufacturing anymore in this country. That is not true. It is not true. In the mid-90s, the United States was producing in real manufacturing value added. In 1997, we were producing $1.4 trillion. In 2025, we were producing $2.4 trillion.
This actually was a surprise to me. I was not aware that I knew it had increased. I didn't realize that it had increased this much. So anyway, I thought that was really interesting.
And it is an arithmetic increase. You can see the line on this chart. We are manufacturing more. Why aren't there more manufacturing jobs? The answer is technology. We are manufacturing more because we have better robots. And they are doing much of the work that people seem to have a very warm and fuzzy feeling about, but that they would never want to do themselves. I notice a lot of people, why can't I have a factory job just like 1955 Ford or something? Yes, I'm sure that you want it to be in a non-air conditioned factory riveting all day. That just sounds like you. That's most Americans. That's your ideal job. No, it isn't. It isn't. Just like working in a coal mine isn't your ideal job either. Okay, here's another chart. We've been told the lie that the American middle class has been hollowed out by international trade. Here's what
Again, I thought this was a surprise to me too. I'll let him talk. But if you notice, the rich have gotten much richer since 1995.
Actually happened to the American middle class over the course of the last several decades. The American middle class stayed approximately the same size, shrank a little bit. Why did it shrink? Why did it shrink? Not because people became lower middle class or poor, but because a huge number of Americans went into the upper middle class. The number one change in the status of American families in terms of income from just before 1980 to about 2015 was a 16 percentage point increase in the upper middle class. In other words, people got richer. And by the way, everyone got richer, including the poor, because the stuff you can get as a poor person in America in 2025 is way the hell better than the stuff that you could get as a poor person in America in 1980. That's just a reality. How about...
I always look at those charts because I think they can be manipulated. But if you look at it, he's got a source and it says Urban Institute. I believe that that is in fact true. But the real question is how are they measuring it? Are they just increasing it by the brackets by the cost of inflation? I'm guessing that's probably the case, but we all know inflation is somewhat misleading with the way it's being measured. So I take that chart with a little bit of grain of salt, but it certainly hasn't gotten worse. And I believe it still has gotten better. I just don't know if it's gotten that much better. But again, I'm splitting hairs.
wages. We keep hearing that wages are stagnant, that they stagnated since 1979. Here, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is a chart. It shows you the average hourly earnings of production and non-supervisory employees. And it shows you what happened to wages between 1980 and 2025. And what you see is a steep increase from the 1990s and up, a very steep increase.
Yeah, and if you haven't noticed, the late 70s and the 80s, while the 80s was a great time to grow up, it wasn't great economically. It was getting better, but you can see the rate of increasing of wages just didn't happen during the 80s. People were not doing better during the 80s. It took to get through the recession of the early 90s and to get to the point where you had Newt Gingrich and the freshman Republicans who came in with the promise that they were going to balance the budget. And you had a president, a Democratic president, that was willing to negotiate and come to a compromise. And they came to a compromise for the better of the country. And by the end of Clinton's second term, we had a surplus in our budget. And again, I don't give Clinton, 100% other than he was willing to negotiate and he saw that it was for the better of the country. But it was mainly these freshman Republicans that came in, I believe it was during his midterm in 1994, that made the biggest difference. So Newt Gingrich was critical of wrangling these freshman House members and getting shit done. Anyway, just a little bit of history there.
I know this cuts against the conventional political wisdom, which is the American economy sucks, and it's because everybody is cheating us. Now, one of the things that President Trump is predicating his tariff war upon is the idea that trade deficits are inherently bad. A trade deficit is where we import more stuff than we export in terms of value. Now, as I pointed out before, you have a trade deficit with literally every business that you do business with unless they are buying your product. So I have a trade deficit with my local Publix, a large trade deficit. They have bought pretty much nothing from me, and I've bought tens of thousands of dollars over the years from my local Publix. Clearly, they are screwing me, or maybe they're not, because I'm getting value for my dollar in the form of food and supplies. Or maybe I should go over to my Publix and just beat the living out of the general manager. I don't know, one of those two things. Trade deficits are
it's a little bit of a stretch of an analogy, but you get the point.
Trade deficits. You label something in export and you label something in import. But trade itself is about mutual benefit, or you wouldn't do the trade in a voluntary system. So the idea that every trade deficit, someone is getting screwed, is a zero-sum view of how economies work, and it's not true. As Thomas Sowell points out, the eminent economist, quote, "If the goods and services available to the American people are greater as a result of international trade, then Americans are wealthier, not poorer, regardless of whether there is a deficit or a surplus in the international balance of trade." In fact, I can name you a period in American history where there was a fairly large surplus in America's balance of trade. The entire Great Depression. Now, there were times in American history that were great, where we also had a surplus. There were times in American history that sucked, where we had a deficit, and times in American history that were great, where we had a deficit. As it turns out, trade deficits have pretty much nothing to do with the health of an economy. They don't tell you very much. In fact, the French economist, Frédéric Bastiat, who's really cutting about this stuff, writing in the 19th century, he said, look, if you're so worried about trade imbalances, then actually what you should do is you should sink ships filled with your own exports before they ever get to the other side. So if we're exporting oranges to Europe and they're going to send us apples in return, the best way to ensure that no trade imbalance takes place is we should send our oranges out of the country and we should sink the ship before it ever gets to Europe so they can't send us apples back. Then we have a large export on our ledger and no imports. Great idea. The economy will be stronger.
Again, that's a little bit of a stretch. Sorry, going back in the chat, I started reading it, but a little bit, Powell's willing to wait it out and won't be changing rates. Yeah, the reason why it won't be changing rates is because this is the recipe for stagflation. Inflation's going to go up because the cost of goods is going to go up. There's no other way around it. When you raise the underlying cost of an item, no matter how the cost occurs, it has to be borne by somebody. Somebody has to take the brunt of that. And it isn't going to be the company, or certainly not long-term. There are companies that have long-term contracts with companies in China that they can't change their prices as to how they're going to pay for it. So they're going to have to basically pass that along to anybody buying their product at some point. Now, if they have long-term contracts that say for the next 3 to 6 months, they're going to have to sell it, they're going to either have to bear the brunt of that loss or just go out of business and go bankrupt. I believe we're going to see some companies go bankrupt because of these types of arrangements. It'll be mostly small businesses. It'll probably fly under the radar, but it's going to happen. But anyway, so bottom line is, going back to what I was really talking about, Powell. He's going to sit on the sidelines to take a wait and see approach to see if inflation is in fact going to go up, especially come, he'll probably at least wait until August to see if there's a significant increase in inflation. And with these high of tariffs, highly likely that we're going to see that. We do not have the ability to recreate every product that, certainly within the next 4 months, that people are going to buy. So they're going to have to buy things internationally. But anyway, let me get back to the video. Come on. There we go.
So a fundamental misunderstanding of trade deficits. And again, that's not balance of payments. That's a different thing. Balance of payments is about the flow of gold. We're no longer on a gold standard, but it's about currencies and all that. Trade deficits are a different thing. The reason I'm bringing up trade deficits is because this is how President Trump is calculating his Liberation Day tariffs. According to the Washington Post, President Trump said Wednesday he will impose a new 10% tariff on all imported goods, along with higher import taxes tailored for each of about 60 countries. His advisors say maintain the largest barriers against U.S. products and a sharp turn toward the kind of protectionism the United States abandoned nearly a century ago. So President Trump said that for decades, our country has been looted, pillaged, and plundered by nations near and far, both friend and foe alike. This is not going to happen anymore. Okay, so let's take a look at the Liberation Day, quote unquote, reciprocal tariffs. Okay, so here I have a chart.
All right, we'll get to that in a second. But thank you for the $1.99 super chat, Financial Failure. I very much appreciate it. So thanks for hanging out for a little bit. Good luck with your sleep study. It sounds relaxing. So hopefully you get a good night's sleep. And actually, while I've got it stopped, let me just see if there is, wow, Vinny, be nice. Don't make me ban you. We all need to be nice to everyone, even if it is only Retro Mike Tech. Let's see. So if you guys do want me to read your chats, please tag me. I'm sure some of you are on mobile, which makes it a little bit harder, but all right, let me just take a quick glance. Oh, Jesus. Wow, the tangents you guys go on. Yes, people still do use desktop. Just so we can tag. Alrighty, let me continue because we're starting to get into some of the good stuff.
President Trump held it up. He held like a big chart, like Wheel of Fortune or something. He held like a big chart that showed reciprocal tariffs. And what it said was,
which aren't really reciprocal
names of
tariffs.
the countries. In another column, tariffs charged to the United States, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. And then USA discounted reciprocal tariffs. So his idea is, here is the tariff rate that a country is charging us. And then we're going to take half that rate and charge it to them.
Except that's not true.
One problem. I mean, there are many problems. There's only one problem here. What is labeled the tariffs charged to the United States is not, in fact, the tariffs charged to the United States. It is not true. It is not true.
Completely false.
I looked at this and I thought, holy crap. The EU is charging us 39% tariff rates on all products. We're exporting stuff there and they're charging a 39% tariff. So that's what this chart says. Japan is charging us 46% tariffs. Malaysia is charging us Cambodia is charging us 97% tariffs. And then I thought to myself, I said, that doesn't sound correct to me. That doesn't
Right.
sound right at all. In fact, that sounds totally wild. I mean, that can't be true. And so I made the mistake of actually looking up some of these statistics. What are the actual average annual tariff rates that are charged on American goods by countries like, for example, Japan or Taiwan, which this chart says is charging us a 64% tariff rate. And it turns out there is zero correlation whatsoever. Those are not, in fact, the tariff rates that are being charged on American goods going into Taiwan or Japan or India or any of these other places. It's just not right. Well, listen, I don't love these tariffs, as you may have noticed, but Doge continues to do some good things, like cut the fat from decades of bloated government spending and corruption. Pure Talk, the cell phone company I use for business every day, they're cutting the fat from the wireless industry. That is correct. Pure Talk says, /Shapiro.
All right. Oh, I forgot. I was going to do premium so we wouldn't get these stupid ads.
To tell your story.
Sorry about that.
So where's that number coming from? And this is where the trade deficit comes in. It's coming from taking the trade deficit of that country and dividing it into the imports that the United States is taking in from that country, and then calling that a tariff rate. Okay, that has nothing to do with the tariff rate. Nothing at all. Zero things to do with the tariff rate. The reason, by the way, that we have a tariff, so according to this chart, for example, Madagascar is charging us 93% tariffs, and we ought to charge them 47% tariffs. Okay, that's what it says. That's what the thing says. There is only one problem with this. That is not remotely true. And if we have a trade deficit with Madagascar, then so the hell what? It's Madagascar.
Right.
The GDP per capita in Madagascar is like $530 a year. Our trade deficit with Madagascar is a few $1 million. Is the idea we have to chisel out of the people of Madagascar extra dollars for American products, or we are getting screwed by the great and powerful people of Madagascar? Is that the idea here? It makes zero sense. It literally has nothing to do with the actual tariff rate. How do we know this? We have perfect proof. Yesterday, Israel, which already had almost no tariffs on the United States, 99% of all goods coming into Israel had no tariff on them from the United States. That was something that Israel did in the 2000s because they used to have high tariffs. And what ended up happening is that Israelis would come to the United States, load up their bags with a bunch of American-made goods, and then take them back with them to Israel to avoid the tariffs. So Israel just got rid of all the tariffs. Yesterday, Israel announced zero tariffs on any American goods. The Trump administration hit them with a 17% tariff anyway, claiming that they had a 33% tariff rate on American goods, which clearly is not true. Why? Because it turns out that we buy more stuff from the Israelis than the Israelis buy from us. Shocker. They're a smaller country. We're a giant market. Not a giant shock, as it turns out.
They have a very big
so
tech,
this is pretty crazy,
heavy
because it turns out the trade deficit has
economy.
nothing to do with the tariff rates. So we are punishing countries that have a low tariff rate with us. For example, like South Korea is listed on this chart as having a 50% tariff rate on us. The average tariff rate South Korea has on American goods, according to the World Trade Organization, is 0.79%. We have a free trade agreement with South Korea. It is listed on this chart as 50%. That's nonsense. It's not true. It just isn't true. And it leads to a 25% reciprocal tariff on all South Korean goods. Now, there are a number of reasons why this is a problem. Okay, whatever, who cares? Well, do we need other countries? Okay, so first of all, yes, we do. It turns out that the supply chains all across the planet are incredibly complex. And if you like the products that you have, at the quality that you have them, and at the price that you have them, you're not going to get to keep them. You don't get to keep anybody who tells you that you can is
nobody's going to take them from your hands.
That Barack Obama
you're
said
just not going to be able to buy them at the same.
Doctor. You don't get to keep your Xbox at the same rate with the same quality. You don't. That's just not the way that these tariffs are going to work. So what exactly happens? Well, Tyler Cowen points out, quoting Scott Lincecum over at Cato, Trump's reciprocal tariffs impose hundreds of billions of dollars in new taxes on Americans without public or congressional input, because that's actually what happened. I have friends, for example, who import product to the United States and then sell them. Why? Because they can't get the product in the United States. So, for example, I have a friend who's in the jewelry business. And this friend in the jewelry business imports products that are not capable of being manufactured or found in the United States from abroad. So it's not like there's import substitution you can just buy from an American. That's not how it works. By the way, this company is an American company. The tariff that is now being applied to all of his imports is like 35, 40%. Those prices will get passed directly on to the consumers. It is a tax paid for by Americans. So this is a massive tax increase on American consumers. That's what it is. And it is designed to be so. And it is talked about in these terms. by the Trump administration that this will cost $700 billion in additional revenue to the government. You know what we call revenue to the government typically?
Taxes.
Paid for by Americans, because that's who pays for it. If you're importing a product and nobody buys it, then you stop importing the product and nothing gets paid to the government. It has to be sold. That is the consumer pays the tax. That is what we would call a tax increase. Okay, these secret calculations that are not so secret anymore because it turns out that actually they just have nothing to do with tariffs at all. Those calculations are nonsensical.
Mm-hmm.
This idea that President Trump is doing this based on legislation that suggests that there is a national emergency on the basis of trade deficits.
I'll listen to this.
No, the answer is no. This is in the purview of Congress. There is no national emergency that justifies a unilateral tax increase of the size that the administration is attempting to levy down on the basis of a trade deficit. Because we buy more stuff from Madagascar than the Madagascars buy from us, that is not a good reason to declare a national emergency, because it ain't a national emergency any more than it's a national emergency that I buy more stuff from my Publix than they buy from me. By the way, there are already free trade commitments that are now being breached by the Trump administration. Right, we have free trade commitments with many of the countries that we are currently slamming with tariffs. Again, it's going to cost American consumers. It will cost American producers who use inputs from other countries. And most importantly of all, if this is supposed to somehow screw, for example, the Chinese, precisely the opposite is about to happen. Why? Because many of the countries that are about to get absolutely hammered are countries that exist in Southeast Asia. So if you want to know what the actual tariff rates are that these various Southeast Asian nations are charging the United States, the answer is not what President Trump is putting up there, which again is rooted in the trade deficits that we supposedly have with these various nations. If you want to know the answer, I did. So I asked my friends at Perplexity, sponsors of the show, what are the actual effective tariff rates Southeast Asian nations have against American goods? Not the Trump statistic, which is rooted in trade deficits. Also, please make a chart correlating the trade deficit or surplus those countries have with the United States with their GDP per capita. So, according to Perplexity, the actual effective tariff rates imposed by Southeast Asian nations on American goods vary significantly across countries. The figures cited by the Trump administration appear to be exaggerated and based on trade deficits rather than real tariff structures. According to the WTO, Vietnam's average most favored nation tariff rate is approximately 9.4%. Now remember, according to the Trump statistic, the average tariff rate that's being charged by Vietnam, the effective tariff rate, is 90%. Okay, so 10 times what the actual tariff rate is what the Trump administration is claiming. Asian nations like Indonesia, Malaysia, impose average MFN rates, most favored nation rates, of 7.5% and 5.6%, respectively. Those numbers are far lower than the inflated numbers presented by the Trump administration. Now, as to trade deficits that we have with these various countries, the answer is because they're poor. They generate cheap product, like in Vietnam, your t-shirt's probably made in Vietnam, and they have no money. So we run a $95 billion.
DJ, it was not made to sell you a subscription. He's got different things built into the thing. He's getting information. Oh, please. Oh, please.
Trade deficit with Vietnam. Their GDP per capita is $4,200. $4,200. Okay, so what are we going to do? Chisel that out of them? Precisely, that $95 billion trade deficit because we want to buy their t-shirts? Same thing with, say, the Philippines. We have a $5 billion trade deficit with the Philippines. And the GDP per capita in the Philippines is $3,700. Meanwhile, Singapore, right, which Singapore is getting hit with a 10% tariff, by the way, for no reason, because we actually have a trade surplus with Singapore. They have a $10 billion trade deficit with the United States. How can Singapore afford that? I mean, aren't we just screwing them? Obviously, according to this logic, we're screwing them. If they have a trade deficit with us, must be that we're jobbing them in some way. The reason that they can have a trade deficit with us is because, wait for it, their GDP per capita is $72,000. So again, none of this is rooted in economic reality. And the biggest problem is there's no way to sort of get out of the box that's been created by these statistics. Because if you were saying lower your tariff rates, and if the tariff rate is already zero or close to it, where do you go from there? So one of the things that happened during the pandemic is knowing that the Chinese were bad actors. Many producers started shifting their supply chains out of China and into other nearby countries, like, for example, Vietnam.
Exactly.
Believing the United States would punish China, but not Vietnam. Mm-hmm. Well, now the new tariffs slam Vietnam with a 46% tariff.
So I'm going to go into this because I have some history of this as well, where, yes, if you look at where all the manufacturing that was coming out of China, where it was going to other countries of Southeast Asia. Okay. And that was continuing as long as we kept the pressure on China with the tariffs. That takes time to move things out of China. So it was still in the process of still occurring. But usually about 5 years is kind of the average amount of time. So we have seen a lot of manufacturing come out of China. And then, but it would still continue after that. We just basically gotten like the 50% mark. Because a lot of these tariffs were put into place towards the end of Trump's term the first time, and then Biden left them in place the way that they were. So now coming into his second term, we're still at about 5 or 6 years. So there was still quite a bit that was still due to come out of China. Well, with these, everybody went, oh, well, why would I move? What's the point? I mean, you got 90% on Malaysia or whatever it is. I mean, I know there was a couple of other countries, but yeah, Vietnam was the one that was 90%. Vietnam is where a lot of the stuff is. And I said this on a tweet earlier today or yesterday. Q-Cells manufactures solar panels in this country, while most of the solar panels are manufactured outside of this country. Why do they do it? Because, well, because they're getting some money from the government in order to get set up and all that. So there were certainly some incentives, but they weren't being tariffed on the products that they were bringing in. Now they're going to get tariffed on all that stuff that they're bringing in from Vietnam. I mean, I was in their warehouse. Most of the stuff I can remember said Vietnam on it. So most of the supplies, for one reason or another, were coming from Vietnam. So it boggles the mind. You say you want to bring manufacturing here? No, it won't. It'll make people not want to manufacture here. It's like, well, what's the point if I'm going to get tariffed on all the products, all the stuff coming in? And then, yeah, I'm still going to have to pay more for the labor that I have in this country. But yet, 75% of the parts cost is coming from outside of this country. Well, the heck with it. I'm just going to manufacture it somewhere else then. None of this makes sense. I had said this a long time ago. If you're going to implement tariffs, which I'm still not a believer in, but if you're going to do it on finished products. Therefore, finished products will come into this, will be manufactured here. Make exemptions or just don't tariff parts, raw materials, all that kind of stuff. Do not tax that. Do not tariff that. And then the stuff there will be and I'll give you a great example. Again, when I was in the bike industry, and I think some of you guys may have heard this story before, but when I was in the bike industry, there was a 40% tariff on bikes that were manufactured. So it was on the finished bikes. That was what was being tariffed. If they brought in cassettes, cranks, frames, all that kind of stuff, none of that would be tariffed, and they would have to manufacture the bikes in the EU. And so what did Giant Bicycles do, which was the largest bicycle manufacturer in the world? They said, okay, I will manufacture bikes in the EU in basically a third world Eastern Bloc country, basically, that was still in the EU. I forget which country it was, but they still were able to get, low cost labor to do it and still be within the letter of the law. So it served its purpose to get manufacturing over into the EU while still having a way for companies to do things that make sense. So if you want end product manufacturing in the States, and that's, I think, where it should start if you want to bring in things here, things like, final iPhone manufacture, like they were going to do in Wisconsin and then never did. Foxconn totally reneged on that project. That type of thing makes sense if you tariff things properly. If you're going to tariff all the parts coming in, well, Foxconn's going to go, well, what's the point? It's still going to cost more to build it here, even with the tariffs. It makes no sense. So the way that this whole thing is set up is a farce, because the tariffs The way that these tariffs have been set have nothing to do with what the actual tariff rates are that those countries have against the United States. Zero. All right. Let me, this is almost done.
So why don't you shift your production back to China? More importantly, if you're the EU and you're not getting racked by the United States with a gigantic tariff, or if you're Canada and you're getting absolutely ravaged by an American tariff, you need markets for your goods. Where are you going to go? Maybe to a country that is perfectly willing to militarize capitalism on behalf of fascism, the Chinese. The Chinese are about to make extraordinary inroads in Southeast Asia. They're about to make extraordinary inroads in Europe and in Canada. Because it turns out when America withdraws from the world and basically declares a trade war on literally everyone, including, by the way, an island with no people. I'm not even kidding. This is a thing. Included in the list of places that President Trump is going to tariff. I wish I were kidding. I'm not kidding. Included in this list is, in fact, the Heard and McDonald Islands. We are hitting the Heard and McDonald Islands with a 10% tariff. The Heard and McDonald Islands include 0 people. Includes penguins. We're hitting the screw them penguins.
Everybody's got to throw that in there.
Penguins.
It's a distraction, if you ask me. So what? It's a non-story.
What exactly is this designed to do? Again, it is predicated.
I remember correctly, it was
on
part of
a
Australia.
Bad
so
idea
got thrown
of how
in with Australia.
International trade works. If I've said this 1,000 times, this is not coming from a place of I want Trump to fail. It's coming from a place of if he engineers a recession based on these sorts of tariffs, which seems increasingly likely if you were to stick with this. If he were to do that sort of thing, all of the amazing things that need to happen and that he is pursuing and that his administration is filled with good people who want to do,
Not
all
sure
that stuff goes
Easter
by the
Island
wayside.
is on
A bad economy kills everything around it. It is the neutron bomb of politics.
Liberty Mutual is all she talks about since we saved hundreds by bundling our home and auto insurance.
And he's not wrong.
If you drop the neutron bomb of politics, a recession, into the lap of this administration, it doesn't just destroy this administration's economic agenda. It destroys the administration wholesale. That is what happens in American politics.
And he's not wrong. I mean, if you look at any president that has presided over a recession, they get nothing done. They get absolutely nothing done. Their policies that want to get done, nothing gets done. It totally distracts from everything else because nobody in the country cares about anything other than the hardship that they are now in because of the economy. You know, as soon as unemployment heads close to 10%, all of those things are really, really bad for an administration because that's all anybody's going to care about. Don't talk about anything. Will not matter. Nobody will listen. Congress will not take up anything else. Their whole focus is going to be how can we get ourselves out of this recession? But one of the other things I wanted to point out was he pointed out the fact that these tariffs are unconstitutional. The only way the president can declare tariffs is if they are war related. That's the only way. That is I forget if it's actually in the Constitution or if it's in the law, one of the two, but that is the current law of the land. So he has created with Canada and Mexico, if you notice, he created a drug war we'll have a war on drugs with fentanyl. And just because, Canada, imported or tried to import, or 40 pounds of fentanyl that was actually caught at the border the entire of last year. That's it. So there's a war related to that. It's a large stretch. Now, when you talk about doing it over the entire world because of a trade war, that is not the intent of the law. And there's going to be, I would be absolutely shocked if there was not a lawsuit basically saying that these tariffs are unconstitutional and they need to be undone. So obviously there's been a lot of things going through the courts. There's going to be a lot more going through the courts. Let's just put it this way. It's, we usually don't talk too much about federal courts, but we've talked more about what's going on in the federal court system, all over the federal court system, more in the first 3 months of the year than we probably have in the entire previous 10. Even during Trump's first term, I don't recall barely anything going through the federal courts. Again, federal courts, not criminal courts, nothing like that. I'm talking the federal courts, the federal court system. So anyway, all right, we're almost to the end of this, but I want
recessions destroy administrations. And by the way, everyone close to them, all the tech bros get destroyed. All of the business people get destroyed. It's really important not to self-engineer a bad economy. Really quite important. It is frustrating at the very least, because this has not been well justified by literally anyone, including members of the Trump administration. JP Morgan put out its forecast, quote, on a static basis, today's announcement would raise just under $400 billion in revenue, or about 1.3% of GDP, which would be the largest tax increase since the Revenue Act of 1968. We estimate that today's announced measures could boost PCE prices by one.
And make no mistake, without an equivalent tax cut, this is a tax increase. And there has been no movement on a tax cut. There's been an announcement of what Trump wants to do, but there hasn't been any movement in Congress regarding what any type of tax cut's going to look like. The only thing that I've heard, correct me if I'm wrong, as far as what's in Congress, not what Trump has said, but what's in Congress, is just extending the Trump tax cuts. And that certainly won't amount to $600 billion. It's certainly $3,800, by the way, is what the estimate is of how much this is going to cost an average family. I don't know about you, but I doubt that my taxes are going to go down by $3,800. And these tariffs are going to slow down spending in a lot of industries that are conveniences, extras, those types of things. People are going to be like, no, I'm not spending that much. But I guess time will tell. And that's one of the ways that actually inflation could stay under control. So one of the things, the way that inflation is measured is that it's measured, there's a measurement in there that says, yes, something else might go higher, but if you have an alternate and you choose an alternate product that is lower, they will look at that. So in other words, if you buy, I'm gonna use the water thing for a second, since Howard Lutnick used it. But let's say you normally take Fiji water and it's $1.50. Well, if you're now going to start drinking Poland and it's $1, well, then there's no inflation because you just changed products. So there wouldn't be inflation in that particular case. Of course, that's something that has things that are made in the US and also made outside the US. But with that said, there will be inflation because Poland is not going to be able to make up the difference immediately because there's too many other waters coming in that were fulfilling the market. So the demand for Poland will go up. And if you look at supply and demand, they're not just going to all of a sudden be able to turn the spigot and make supply go up. Demand goes up, the price of Poland will go up. Or it'll just run out of stock and then people will be forced to buy something else that will be higher in price. So prices and inflation are definitely going to go up. All right, let me keep going with this.
1 to 1.5% this year. We believe the inflationary effects would be mostly realized in the middle quarters of the year. So in other words, inflation will start ticking up again fairly significantly. The resulting hit to purchasing power could take real disposable personal income growth in both the second and third quarters into negative territory. And with it, the risk that real consumer spending could also contract in those quarters. This impact alone could take the economy perilously close to slipping into recession. That's before anyone else tries to punish us for punishing them. This is before, according to JP Morgan, accounting for the additional hit to gross exports and to investment spending. Headlines about retaliatory measures by U.S. trading partners are already coming out. We expect to learn more in coming days. The somewhat confusing nature of today's news, coupled with uncertainty over how long these tariffs will remain in place, should make for an even less friendly environment for investment spending. We plan to revisit our forecast later this week. By the way, you know who else is upset? The manufacturers. This was supposed to save the manufacturers, right? You heard President Trump say it. We are going to bring manufacturing back to the United States. Here is a statement from the National Association of Manufacturers President and CEO, Jay Timmons, quote, needless to say, today's announcement was complicated, and manufacturers are scrambling to determine the exact implications for their operations. The stakes for manufacturers could not be higher. Many manufacturers in the United States already operate with thin margins. The high cost of new tariffs threaten investment, jobs, supply chains, and in turn, America's ability to outcompete other nations and lead as the preeminent manufacturing superpower. Manufacturers build things in America to sell around the world, and manufacturers in America share President Trump's goal of supporting manufacturing investment growth and expansion here at home. To empower manufacturers to drive the economy, the administration should minimize tariff costs for manufacturers investing and expanding in the United States, ensure tariff-free access to critical inputs manufacturers use, secure better terms for manufacturers by negotiating zero-for-zero tariffs. So in other words, bring the tariffs down, not increase them.
Right.
That's the National Association of Manufacturers saying that. We'll get to more in a moment. First, Grand Canyon University, a private Christian university in beautiful...
All right, that was pretty much it. The other thing that is going to happen, and this has happened in history, is that countries get mad at the aggressor in all wars, and including a trade war. And yeah, here, let me actually go back to full screen. There we go. People around the world get mad at aggressors. Countries get mad at aggressors. So what's going to end up happening if we don't change, okay, maybe this is some elaborate negotiation tactic. Time will tell, and we'll see. But if it's not, what you're going to find, and this history has done this back in the 30s, is that countries got extremely, extremely mad at the United States, and they formed their own trading blocks. So they basically said, US, you want to do what you're doing? Fine. You figure things out for yourself. You be an island. We're not going to be. So, yes, that's so we became an island. Some of the other countries, like we really, if you look at like what caused World War II, part of it was the trade wars, because we stopped buying anything from Germany, and by us buying from Germany gave them the money so that they could pay reparations. And so then we were looking for reparations. Germany's like, with what? What are we going to pay you with? We have goods that we want to sell you, but because your tariffs are too damn high, nobody's going to buy them. So economically, Germany got really, really bad over the first 3 years of the Hawley-Smoot Act. And that's what gave rise to nationalism, and whether it was going to be Hitler or some other nationalist person that was going to try to revive the economy, unfortunately ended up being Hitler, and we all know what happened there. So it certainly didn't necessarily cause Hitler to be, but it was a factor. It gave him an opportunity to do what he did. Because the economy in Germany was so poor. So this is not going to be a good thing unless calmer heads prevail. I'm honestly, I'm very nervous to see where it goes, because the inflation rate is going to skyrocket. The Fed is going to be like, look, I have a choice. The economy's failing, or interest rates are going up. And if you look where the smart money was at the end of the 70s when there was stagflation, the only way out of stagflation is to get interest rates under control. That is the only way. So interest rates will go up, even though it will provide more unemployment and more slowdown. So if we look at, once we got out of the world, well, actually even before we got into the World War, FDR came to power, and he actually went around and negotiated, much smaller tariffs, and to basically bring everybody back into a world economy, and basically created what eventually became the World Trade Organization. So yeah, it's history could be repeating itself in a much worse way. If you look at what the tariffs were back with the Hawley-Smoot Act, nowhere near what's being done here. So we'll see. We shall see. All right. There endeth the lesson. So, all right, let me see here. Rizzo, kind of glad I told my job to fire me in February and cashed out my 401k in March. LOL, saved some dollars. Actually, speaking of that, well, I shouldn't say anything yet. let's just say that I'm happy that I got transferred to the new building. That's what I will say. Let me just double check. Kind of like bricks. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Except there will be broader alliances than just bricks. But bricks is a perfect example of what's happening. Although that's kind of been, the bastard children, I guess, type thing, where it's the ones that everybody's got, sanctions against, things like that. But I really believe that there's going to be, the EU and China and Southeast Asia, and they will just be like, hey, that's fine. Let's see what we can do about doing with all this. And here's the other part of it. Although I'm guessing that, anything having to do with government spending, no, that won't be tariffed. Because could you imagine if we forced those tariffs to go through, and then people building our defense weapons, defense equipment, that they all had to pay? Because that they're getting stuff from outside the country. All the electronics is, capacitors, resistors, ICs, all of that is built outside this country. We put it together, we program it here, but all of that will be tariffed unless somehow it becomes, exempt, which would be really convenient for them. All right, let's see what else did I miss. It was said ad nausea that this is a negotiating tactic. Not yet. Well, it's in effect. It's in effect, which means anything coming in right now is subject to those tariffs. So don't know what to tell you, but we'll see. Like I said, I hope you're right. I hope for the sake of this country that that's what happens, Patrick. But there's a lot of people that are like, if this isn't, we are in for a world of hurt. And from what we've been seeing is that some are willing to come to the table and some are like, you know what? I'm done with this. We'll just do tariffs. Like China just basically said, fine, you're doing 34%. We'll do 34%. Doesn't seem like they want to come to the table. Some of the European countries have said they do, but we'll see. We shall see. Like I said, I really hope you're right, Patrick. Really hope you're right. There was the only thing left was taking out an interest-free $1,000 loan. I saw what was coming and cashed out. I sold the top. I'll buy back in later. Nice. $10,000 iPhone. It won't be that much, but it could be $3,000. Their top iPhone could be $3,000. Think about how much the 5090 will be. 5090, if you just look at the one from NVIDIA, the one that sells at MSRP, that's going to be over $3,000. 54% tariff on top of that. $3,000. The other ones, shoot, scalping is going to look like nothing. There were scalped ones that were being sold for $4,500. That's about how much they're going to cost. So for everybody that's here, I'll let you in a little secret. I shouldn't say a secret, but I am in a, one of the, I'm trying to think of it's a Discord channel. Anyway, there's a guy who's in the know who has a connection to the Best Buy warehouses. And that person has said that a shipment of Founders Edition 5090s has come in. He thought they were going to be released today. They were not. So keep your eyes open. It could be it'll be the last one that comes in before the tariffs went into effect. So that's like a great way to make money. Honestly, you don't even have to scalp them. Just buy one, hang on to it until the tariffs go into effect. They change the MSRP at Best Buy, and then you just sell it for that. You make a quick $1,000. Easy. So just something to keep in mind. I'm trying to get one because I want to actually try to use it. But yeah, it's going to make the scalping look like nothing. Leaky Max. Well, hey, you guys are here, all 40 of you. So I thought I'd give you a little bit of information that I got. Again, I can't say for sure. I was really hoping today was going to be the day where they released them, and I was watching all day. Didn't happen. Oh, one thing I did do today, I forgot to mention. I changed to Windows 11, and I can't even tell the difference. The only thing, and I think it was Gaming with Smokey Dan that mentioned this. It was somebody in Discord that mentioned it. Or actually it was on, no, I take it back. It was on Twitter. I don't know. Somebody had mentioned it and said, hey, your settings are going to change. And he was right. Like when I went into OBS, my microphone wasn't selected, but that was the only thing. The cameras and everything were still good. The only thing I had to do was select the microphone. And then I was all set. Oh, gaming. Yeah, it was you. Oh, it was in, thank you. I forgot where it was. I thought it was you that did it. But yeah, it really hasn't been bad. Not yet. Knock on whatever IKEA's furniture is made out of. But it really hasn't been bad. It has not been bad at all. The only thing I really, really hate at this point is I like really, really small icons in my taskbar, and you can't resize the icons in the taskbar like you could with Windows 10. You can do it by rescaling your screen, but I already have my screen at 100%, not 125 or anything like that. You know, being colorblind and being the age that I'm at, it's amazing. My eyes are really, really good. I actually at work have a 4K screen that is it's at 125%. It's not at 100%. It's just easier to read. I could do 100% on a 4K screen. I have never seen anybody put their desktop at 100% to get more real estate. But anyway, yeah, I did that today. I actually changed to Windows 11. It took less than an hour. They were like, you need to at least make sure that you have at least 2 hours set aside because it's going to take a while. Mine didn't take that long. Did not take long at all. And I did not do a fresh install. I did the upgrade. I was lazy. But so far, so good. Oh, interesting, Vinny. I didn't know that IKEA furniture is made out of old meatballs. Did I keep all the open tabs? You betcha I did, Turtle Tech. It was kind of interesting, though, because when I closed out, normally what I'll do when I'm closing out before restarting the machine is I'll actually go into the task manager and kill Chrome, because then it says, hey, do you want to, it didn't close right. Do you want to restore? I'm like, yes, I want to restore. And then it'll just restore all my tabs. This time I didn't. I just said close. I'm like, oh crap. Am I going to lose any tabs? So when I got back up after doing Windows 11 and I clicked Chrome, it only brought up one out of the two windows. I was like, damn it. But I'm like, all right, well, let's see. Control-Alt-T, or I can go into history and probably bring it back up that way. But I hit Control-Alt-T. It brought up the same window again. And then when I hit Control-Alt-T again, Control-Shift-T again, then it brought up the second window, which is my main window, actually. I'm not sure how to distinguish the one versus the other, but I have two main windows. And I have like about 140 tabs open. Right now it's 161 because I had opened up a bunch for this stream and doing some research for the stream. But yeah, let's see. So yes, I did keep all of the tabs open. But now one of the things I did do in the morning was I had like over 200 tabs. And I just went through every single tab I had and started closing them out. Because what ends up happening is like, great example. You know, if you're a YouTuber, you know this, you go into studio.youtube.com. That's your studio to look at, you know, what your content is, see if you have any community comments, you know, all things like that. So instead of searching for that tab, most of the time I will just open up a new one. So I'll end up with like 5 of those. And so every so often I'll have to go up to the upper left of Chrome, hit down, and then just type Studio and start closing out those tabs. But yeah, and that's generally what I've done is like I'll type in YouTube. One thing I have noticed is if you have too many YouTube tabs open, Chrome just crawls, just absolutely crawls. I'm pretty sure that's what was causing it. That was actually one of the reasons why I thought maybe it's time. Let's see if Windows 11 does better with Chrome management. Or maybe it's just time for me to start using a different browser than Chrome, because maybe it's just kind of turned to crap, because it really hasn't been great lately. That's for sure. Let's see. Game of Smokey Dan, you tagged me, but you didn't say anything. You just said max voltage. Oh, I see, right above it. Let me guess, memory use is at 8. No, it is not. I will tell you exactly what it's at, but it is definitely not that. No. Why did you do that? Let me go over here and do it. There we go. Hold on. Task manager. And we're going to look it by memory. Memory is 49%. 49%. But you forget, I have 64 gigs of memory in this thing. So I'm using 32 gigs of memory. So if I had a normal amount of memory, yes, I would be using a lot. But honestly, I just have a lot of things that I have open. So right now, my Google Chrome is less than 12 gig. So it is not everything. It's just I got a lot of things that take up memory. So, but I mean, memory is relatively cheap. And if it makes your computer run well, I actually was debating because I have, I forget what it is, but it's not the best memory. I have thought maybe that was part of the reason why I was getting a slowdowns, but not sure. Yeah, 10% buffer, you're good. Yeah, I've got 50% buffer with where I'm at right now. Vinny Del Greco. Why? Oh my gosh. That's a flash from the past. I'm guessing most people get that reference. You know, it's interesting. I was looking at who watches my videos, and it's really interesting. Like my latest video just has like 800 views or something like that. It is very much men and between two age groups, 65 plus and 35 to 45, 35 to 44 specifically, not 44 to 55 or 44 to 50 or 45 to 54 or 55 to 64. I thought that was kind of odd. But still interesting. But yes, the biggest one was the 65 plus. So there's a guy that I have been watching. He goes by Shane Hummus. He has a main channel where he talks about remote jobs. That's how I initially found him. I've mentioned it before. But he has a secondary YouTube channel called Shane Hummus Content Growth Engine. All right. And he's basically a coach. And he really does have good advice. And he gives out free advice. He has a Zoom call that he also puts on YouTube. Usually once a week. He takes some weeks off, but usually about once a week. Yes, he is advertising his coaching. He's showing you what type of knowledge he can bring to the table. And he knows that a certain percentage of the people are going to sign up for the coaching. So yes, it is self-serving. Does not change the fact that the information he is providing is really, really good. And one of the videos he had was a trend on YouTube right now, which is old guy wisdom. Where people over the age of 65 are watching YouTube videos. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. So then when I saw the stat of who was watching my videos, I was like, okay, might have to change the way I'm doing things to attract more of the old guy wisdom content viewers. But we'll see. We'll see. Right now, my intention is to go more towards, and this is where I really want to go, is making my basement a better environment. So more data center. I've actually been looking it up. There's A2 data center. A1 is like hard. It's like you can't go above like, or your recommended temp is like 80 degrees or 77 degrees, somewhere in that range. While you can go up to, I think, 80, it was somewhere in the 80s. I don't know if it was 80 or a little bit higher than that. But A2, on the other hand, which was interesting because I looked at the specification of the Octo server, and the Octo server is meant for an A2 environment, which can go up to 95 degrees. So I'm like, okay, can I get away with just airflow instead of trying to air condition the basement? So I certainly will be experimenting with that. I did actually order another outlet fan. And so what we're going to do is, I already had an extra in case the other one failed. What we're going to do is we're going to remake the outlet fan that we have in the window well. And when I say we, I mean Sunflower Mama, because she's a handy one. So we're going to make that so it can mount 2 fans, because it will fit 2 fans in that space. And then we're also going to make something that is a little bit, something that's going to be stiff to be a ramp to direct the air from, basically deflect the air up, instead of the way it is right now, which is like a piece of cardboard that is curved, but it basically over time is just basically barely curved at all. So it doesn't really serve much of a purpose. So we're going to do that and see if that can really increase thing. The one thing I did recently is we cut out an overlapping screen. I mentioned that on Sunday's stream, and we put a Vornado that fits perfectly in that window well. And it has been much cooler in the basement since I did that. So I may get a different Vornado or put a box, something that has more cubic feet per minute so that we can move more air through it, and see how long we can make it while still keeping the temps at a reasonable temperature. I'll have to get and I'm also going to create a hot cold aisle. If Crypto Craig is still here, I think he was one that mentioned it. I would really like to know how you created your hot cold aisles. I only have one rack right now, so I was just planning on putting, pieces of like insulation board on the side of the rack going all the way to the wall. So the hot aisle is just going to be behind it, blowing out, and then obviously be sucking through. And I'll put fans directly in front of it to help with that airflow. That is the current plan, but I'd be curious, Crypto Craig, how you have yours set up. Sorry, going back to tags. Let's see here. Stop that. Let's see. Game of Smoky Dan says, I update my memory with my own, hence why I'm forgetful at times. Wait, what was I talking about? Nice. Retro Mike says, Chrome crawling is generally due to how it tries to offload to the GPU. If your CPU has an APU, switch Chrome to integrated graphics. Fix my issues with my 3070 and Ryzen 5800 Alienware crawling. If my CPU doesn't have an APU, neither does yours if you're Ryzen 5800. So mine doesn't have an APU. I've got a 5950X. Yeah, the 5800 that you have doesn't have an APU, does it? But that's interesting. Well, I'm going to see. Right now, it hasn't been a problem since I've done it recently, but we'll see. Retro Mike, old people can relate to Macs. Yeah, I would imagine. Internet Explorer 4 is good. Might not be up to security requirements. I could be wrong, but I'm thinking that'd be the case. Game of Smoky Dan, stop. Naps, sore hip, knee. My knee's fine. The knee gets sore because of the hip, believe it or not. It actually, I I was watching something about when your hip gets really bad, yeah, you can get pain all the way down your leg and into your foot, and it's not sciatica. It's actually related to the pain in your hip. And due to muscle imbalances and such. I got to do some therapy is what I need to do. And I keep saying it, and I do it, then I don't, and then I do it, and then I don't. I need to do that. This old GPU with max voltage. That's not a bad, if I was going to create another channel, that wouldn't be a bad title to a channel. It would not be bad. I like it. That's funny. All right, let me scroll down. I will be experimenting with that. That's what she said. I only have one female age group that watches my videos. And that would be Tornado. Tornado is the name of the fan company. But it's a nice rack. Yes, it is. You'll ping me on Discord. Thanks, CryptoCraig. I appreciate it. S. Chang, welcome. Is your intake opening bigger than the exhaust? No. Yes. Sorry. The intake is bigger than the exhaust. Yes. I have two windows open and I have one window exhausting. And the one window exhausting is less than 50% of the other windows. Now, the one window was kind of choked off because it was like, so the way we have things set up right now is like the output, there's no screen on the window or anything, but there's a screen on top. So the air has to get through that screen. So that obviously creates some resistance. On the other two windows, not only is there a screen on top, there's also a screen that it has to come through. So the air has to go through. So that the resistance going out is going to be less than the resistance coming in on on both the windows. So we're kind of thinking about that as well, that we might just stick with the mesh. The reason why we went with the screen was to keep bugs out, but I don't know how big of an issue that would be. So we might just go with mesh, which will allow a lot more air to come through. I don't know. We're still debating on that. Let's see. Retro mic 5800H. So it has a Vega APU. Oh, okay. Got it. But doesn't help you though. No, it doesn't help me. What's wrong with the defaults? What defaults? Not sure what you're referring to. Low magnesium causes nerve pain, Max. Oh, believe me, I have been taking magnesium. I have cramps. Part of that is due to diet. But yeah, I have been taking magnesium pretty much daily. I miss a day every now and then. It's obviously low doses. You guys have heard of milk of magnesia. It'll move things in your system. I'm not taking enough to make a huge difference there. So it's a balancing act. But lately, last couple nights, I have not woken up with cramps. And when I say cramps, I mean like in weird parts of the leg, in the foot, in the front of the calf, inner thigh. Although I haven't had an inner thigh cramp in a long time. Those are the worst. They are so painful. But the worst part is that the cramps I'm getting are not super painful, but they're really annoying. You can't go back to sleep with them. I mean, that's the key. So I end up having to stand up. Once I stand up, the cramp goes away, but I'm up. I didn't get enough sleep. So, yeah, definitely taking the magnesium has helped, so that I can get better night's sleep. Let's see. Retro Mike, that would be Amy's age group. Oh, got it. No, not Tornado. The key is to chamber the hot and not pressurize it, then get the heat out. Yeah, I'm not going to pressurize it. The idea is to basically suck it out. So, basically capture it behind the rack, have all that stuff blowing towards the outlet fan and going that way. Right now I have, and I'm going to have to reconfigure the rack, because right now I have the 8 GPU rig on the floor next to the rack, and I have the Octo server on the front. So none of those are really near the outlet fan. So they're blowing towards it, but it's not like it's immediately sucking it out. Plus the rack, yes, it's right in front of the window, so it is naturally going to kind of go that way, but it's not like sucking out the heat only. It is taking out a mix, shall we say, instead of specifically taking out that heat. Crypto Craig, what's the hottest you've ever had your hot aisle? That's one thing I'm really curious about, because like I said, the A2 was like an ambient temperature. So I'm thinking they're more like saying the cold aisle can't be higher than 95 degrees. I don't think it matters so much what the hot aisle is, as long as it's being evacuated. All right. Let's see. Give me a Smoky Dan says, get a mesh screen. Again, it all depends on how fine, shall we say, how close the screen is together. Obviously, the more material there is, obviously the more resistance there's going to be. So you need to have more openings. Anyway, I mean, I'm thinking that we just keep the same screens that come into the house, but lessening the screens on the actual window wells themselves. Because there is covers on it. I mean, so the rain isn't going to come in because there's a cover on top. So there's like a space between the cover and the screen, and the air comes up and goes out. And all along the outside is a very wide, like, screen. I don't want to say screen, but it's more like fencing type material. So it's like chicken wire type thing. So you keep out any animals and such, so they don't try to get into the window well. In our area, it's not uncommon for a skunk to try to get into a window well. Let's see. Yeah, the one thing that's made the biggest difference with pain, because I really haven't been on painkillers that much, is lowering my carbs. Has been huge. And actually, it's the lowering of the carbs means you have lower insulin, and it's the lower insulin that lowers the inflammation. So I have much less inflammation than I had, say, 6 months ago. Let's see. Cramps, you say, is that the time of the month? No, not those kind of cramps. I hear chocolate helps and hot water bottle. Are you being sarcastic or are you being serious? If you're talking about dark chocolate, I have heard that has some benefits. I don't remember if it was for cramps or not, though. Yeah, and of course you got to stay hydrated, no question. Drinking Diet Pepsi works, right? I'm joking, but that is Diet Pepsi. Like I said, it's been stressful. So I have been not changing totally the way I eat, but I haven't been so focused on losing weight. I'm losing much smaller amounts than I have been losing just because I haven't been focused on it. If I want to eat something before I go to bed, I eat it. Obviously I have only things that are within the diet, but eating stuff right before you go to bed isn't the best thing. So, but yeah. Let's see. What else we got going on here? Get a CBC blood test. I've had blood tests. Everything else is fine. I do have to go back and get my PSA retested though. So, screens are fine. Just think like HVAC air conditioner requirements, like 20-inch round for about 1100 CFM blower. Yeah. So the current fan that I have there is a 960 CFM fan. So I'm going to double that. So it'll be close to 2000. It'll be like 1920. going out. So there will be quite a bit of air going out that window well. So I'm looking forward to that. We're going to do that next week. The fan comes in on Monday. Oh, although I have not ordered the tool yet. I need to get I wanted to get a saw that was better for the job, rather than trying to use a circular saw to cut out the opening. Let's see. This is something between you and Retro Mike. You basically have to suck it up. That's what he said. Craig, always be vibing. Max, I got a turbo fan that works. Trust me, those old like round turbo fans, they're okay. They're not the best, especially when you're putting things in a window well. You're better off with a box fan that fits. This tornado fan that I got, it moves a lot of air, a lot more air than the other box fan. Well, I shouldn't say that. The box fans I have actually move a ton of air, but they do not fit in the window well opening. The Vornado, not Tornado, Vornado. They didn't have the knob on top. They just have like buttons. And because of that, and they made them just a little bit smaller, shorter, that they fit perfectly in that space. So it's perfect. And it has enough weight that I don't have to worry about the fan, like, pushing, against, the screen, like to actually push the air pressure, pushing the fan out. Some of the other ones I've put in there, yeah, that's what they do. They're not heavy enough. Let's see. He's right. Chocolate helps. Yeah. Dark chocolate, I'm sure. Key is to chamber it and keep the heat 100% isolated. Yeah, that's going to be what I'm going to try to do. Try to make sure that all the air is getting directed. Obviously, the Octo server, I'm not able to put the top on. That's what I'm saying. I'll have a fan in front of it so to make sure it's directed towards the back, not allowing any of the heat to come out. But obviously, the fans within the Octo server do push air out the back. So I think that will be fine. It's the one that I have on an open air frame. I have 8 GPUs on an open air frame. That one I'm going to need a fan in front of. Obviously I need to face all the GPUs so that like the connector side is towards the back, because that's where some of the heat comes out. The rest of it comes out the top. But as long as I've got a fan in front of that as well, it should be pushing out that air. The other thing I thought of was I could also block off portions of the front of the rack, but I kind of don't know. I don't know. I'll have to play around with it to see if that will be beneficial or not. But the plan right now is just leave the whole front of the rack open. I will have to reconfigure the rack because of sizes that are there. Some of the stuff will not fit the way it's currently configured. So I got to just change a little bit. And I'm going to take the NAS out of there. The NAS will not be in that rack. I don't want it to be subject to that much heat. Hard drives don't like heat. Certainly not anywhere near that much. Let's see. How far behind am I? I guess I'm not that far behind. Well, I eat lots of cheese, gave me to Smoky Dan. Is that good for hydrating? I do keep temp sensors on both sides, and my number of fans and speed ramp up accordingly. Yeah, so I do have a temperature sensor on but again, it's more of a general since nothing's like blocked off. But I do have a temperature sensor on the one fan that's in there, and I'll have another temperature sensor. Or possibly the same one. I think this one only had one plug. But it'd be good if I actually had 2 of these, because then I could have, if it's somewhat hot, I can have only one fan going. And then if it gets really hot, then I can have both fans going. That's what I'm thinking. The Arctic ones are great. 4-pin, 8,000 RPM. Oh, you're talking about, yeah, I don't know if I might be able to use some of those. That's a good point. I could use those possibly on the open air rack. I'm not sure. I'll have to take a look. And I got to remember where the heck I put. It was one of the ones from GPU Risers. Yeah, it was the 2-level one, the 12 GPU one that's 2 levels, and I have 8 on it. And I don't remember what I did with the rest. Really, ideally, it'd be good to put a fan, put Delta fans on the back of that instead of trying to put them on the front, which I think is where, I don't know. I'll have to take a look at that, but that's an interesting thought. Appreciate that. Air mover floor drying blower fan, 2200 CFM, lowers temperatures over 15 degrees. Yeah, that is true. That is very true. I have thought about that. I've thought about a couple different things. So one of them is if I could place the blower for the air conditioner or the outlets for the air conditioner in front of the rack. But that's going to be really difficult because, again, the outlet fan's right there. I will have no room in that window well to have any outlets for air conditioning. And the rest of the windows are like across the basement. So I would have to somehow build extensions so that it would exit the heat that it was cooling and then blow cold air directly at the rack so that the air coming in would be pre-cooled. Instead of cooling the whole area, I'm just pre-cooling the air that is being pulled into the rack, therefore cooling off the rack. Only thing that worries me about trying something like that is humidity. You're taking humid air coming from the outside. It's probably at like 45 to 50% humidity. And now you're going to try to cool it by, say, 10 degrees. What is that humidity going to? And obviously I'm saying I can do the math, or the translation at least. Somebody else can do the math for me. But I would need to see what that would change in the humidity level of the air then now getting sucked in. If it's over 80%, that would be bad. That would be bad. So anyway, I've got a lot of different ideas that I'm thinking about. Arctic, blah, 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 with static pressure of 37, blah, 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 and a maximum airflow of 370 meters squared per hour. Let me, I am going to copy that. And let me open up a notepad. And you know, one of the things I really like about Windows 11 is Notepad. You want to know why? Because the Notepad in Windows 11 has tabs. I love that. All right. Yusuf says, Max, I got a Mounto half horsepower air mover turbo fan. Works great. I will copy that as well. Because, yeah, it's all about, obviously, the amount of air being moved. But if you are sucking in air that is 95 degrees, you are not going to cool that air unless you give something to cool. So that's the worry I have, is I have to have some type of air being a source that has to come from the outside if I'm using an outlet fan. I don't know. Like I said, this is going to be a work in progress, but we'll figure it out. Oh shoot. Is that from Spaceballs? I knew it was a comedy. I couldn't remember if it was Ghostbusters or Spaceballs. Yes, I know, but if you're blowing okay. Yes, you are correct, but it doesn't change the temperature of the air going into it. So if the maximum temperature for a piece of equipment says that it is 95 degrees and you're blowing 95 degree air on it. So, and I know that it's 95 degrees, assuming that there isn't that much air movement. So I get that too. So anyway, like I said, it's going to be a work in progress, but I do understand that if you do have a lot of air movement, you're going to be much better off. So like I said, I'm going to experiment with this, and I'm going to try to use only air movement to cool things enough in the basement. But you have to understand is right now, it's already, when it's 75 degrees outside, it's 90 degrees in the basement. Does not take much for it to get to 95 or above. Hence the reason why I want to change the way it's being done. One thing I did want to say. So I do have another person coming out tomorrow at between 10 and 12 to actually give me a quote on the panel, the upgrade. And I'm going to be doing that in about a month. And obviously, if I'm going to do any type of cooling, I'm going to need that. And obviously if I want to expand, I'm going to need that. But right now I'm worried about cooling just what I have, for the summer. So I don't know. We will see. We will see where we go, but definitely would like to try to avoid the air conditioning, but I also don't want to be dying, in the house like I was last year. It was, 80, 82 degrees in the house. 7,500 CFM will blow your clothes off, Crypto Crag. Sorry, it just makes me, reminds me of the Italian Job at the end of the movie when the sound blew the clothes off of the woman. Game of Smokey Dan, gonna build a tunnel to a very cold country so I can open a vent to let the cold air in. I like that. I mean, you can do geothermal. You don't have to go to another country. You just dig really deep and you'll get cold. So there's that. Definitely that. Yusuf puts, max, I was in an 80 degree room with turbofan temp was 65 degrees. Really? Okay. Like I said, I'm going to try it. Let's see. Vinny Del Greco Mega Maid. Oh, yeah, that was the character. That's right. Yes, she rocks. Perrier. Max, did you see Panda video of water vapor fan thing he had? Yeah, I know that he's got that. What do they call it? A swamp cooler. Swamp coolers work in dry environments. I'm in a basement in the Chicago area that has very hot and humid summers. So swamp cooler is not really going to be ideal for this area. That's great. Like if you're in Arizona, perfect. You're in, in a dry area of Canada. I'll just leave it at that. Yes, perfect. But you got to be in a dry area, where humidity is typically very low. So when you add the water vapor to the air, the cold water vapor to the air, it will cool it, but not having a high enough humidity level to do anything harmful. But I do plan on looking in that. Our Schwartz got tangled. Oh, how many quotes are we going to do from Spaceballs? I see your Schwartz is as big as mine. Swamp cooler, not in my boxers. Idea to keep your balls cool during hot days. Okay, then. I hate it when that happens. All right. Was there anything else that I was going to talk about tonight? Give me a second while I pull up my description. I thought there was something else I was going to talk about. Let's do that. Give me 1 second. And live. And I think I covered everything, but there weren't too many things I wanted to do. No, I pretty much covered it. Yeah, certainly I've covered buying the dip. Again, in this market, we're going to see, I think, repeated dips. So when it goes down, buy. And then when it goes up 10%, 20%, whatever, I would suggest closer to 10, sell, rinse, repeat. we're in this market, and I believe that we're going to continue being in, again, not financial advice, but I personally am doing this strategy in order to, first of all, lessen losses for any downturn. I will have garnered some gains along the way, which will alleviate some of the losses if things go down, and then I can buy at a lower level. So just keep that in mind. Any other questions? I've been going for how long? Oh, 2 hours. Wow. I had no idea. I guess it was pretty easy with having Ben Shapiro on here for, I think, about 20 or 25 minutes. So continuing on with the Spaceballs references. I'm a Mog, half man, half dog. I'm my own best friend. Good old John Candy. I'm not a fan of sour cream. Garlic and onion is nice. I haven't seen that movie in so long. Of course, nobody has mentioned, or maybe I just missed it. We went right by ludicrous speed, and we went to Plaid. Or something to that effect. I don't remember the exact quote. Any other questions? I'm trying to think if there's anything else I was going to share. I do still plan on doing a video talking about the stuff I'm doing in the basement, and making it what it would take to make it a full-on data center, and kind of go from there. I'm kind of intrigued by the idea. I do know that when I had the outage last night with Comcast, it was planned, and they said it was to do upgrades, and I'm already at 2 gig down, 300 up technically. And actually I'm at 2.1 gig down now. They upped the speed a little bit. And actually I tend to get higher than that, usually. Thoughts on Digibyte. Does it have potential to moon? I don't know if it has potential to moon, but I honestly think it's more fun to mine than Bitcoin. So mine Digibyte, or figure out if it's more profitable than Bitcoin. Because Digibyte, if you're on one of these like lottery miners and you solo mine it, you will, like, every 2 to 3 months hit a block, or possibly more often than that. I was doing it on a 500 gigahash, I think 400 gigahash. It wasn't even a terahash. And I was getting a block about once every month or two on it. But the time I used it, I forget what the thing was called. It was from the same company that's selling the lottery miners that everybody's talking about. But it actually ended up dying out. Obviously, I think the chip got too hot or something, and eventually it just didn't work. So it's in one of those bins back there. I haven't even thrown it out yet, but I probably just should throw it out. But no, I actually like Digibyte. I don't understand why it hasn't done better, but yes, I will show videos of the basement. I've shown videos of the basement before, but yeah, I will show current videos of the basement. Actually, I might, as part of it, I'm going to be doing some cleanup down there. It's really kind of become, I worked on projects, got things working, and then didn't put boxes or other things away. Well, now with all the GPUs gone, I have room in boxes that we can now put that stuff away. So I like to keep boxes of stuff in case I ever want to sell them. So all of my, I don't know if you guys have ever seen like Seasonic Prime power supply boxes. They're like that long. I mean, they're big. Of course, it's 1600 watt power supplies, so they're big by themselves, but the actual power supplies themselves and the actual boxes themselves are really, really big. Let's see. No way you get higher than me. But you don't smoke. Though I hear edibles are all the rage and help with pain relief. I'm sure they probably do. and I've had people suggest it, but that's I usually run into my most amount of pain is when I'm at work, and being on edibles at work would not be good. That would be bad. That'd be very bad. They would not like it. Video of hot cold aisle. Yeah, I don't really have a hot cold aisle right now. But I can show you the setup I've got. Oh, you really want to see my Octo server? Okay. I mean, it's different than yours. I have the single CPU one, and it holds only it can hold 12 GPUs, but that's only with 8 lanes each. And I've got the 3.5 slot. Well, you know, all the 49ers are 3.5 slots, so it only holds 6 GPUs. And I did actually recently change that. I had it where it was like I would rent it on 2. So there could be 3 instances of 2 each, or most of the time it was 4 and then the 2 sat, because nobody seems to want 2. So when everybody was off of it, I switched it to 6, and now I've had somebody on it for quite a while with 6. So I'm going to leave it like that. I think that's the better way to go, even though you have a harder time showing up in the GUI search. But from what I've heard and what they have said, most people are doing their searches via the CLI, and you know, they're going to be looking at 4+ if they're looking for at least 4. So they will see the 6. Let's see. Rizzo, I changed my mini Doge 3 on Mining Dutch to get paid out on Digi. Interesting. I don't know if I'd hold Digi. It's not a bad coin. I'm not saying it's a bad coin. I'm just thinking that in this current market, I think if I'm going to mine and hold something, I think I want it to be Bitcoin. But again, transferring it into, I mean, you're doing Mining Dutch, you could just transfer that. Instead of doing Digi, you could do Bitcoin instead. Game Me with Smokey Dan. Why? Used to do it all the time. LOL. Shh. Oh, about the, yeah, okay, I won't say it again. Game Me with Smokey Dan says, I got high one time on my break, came back and staked the iceberg lettuce. So no matter which one you picked, they fell down. Simple pleasures. I'm not which one you came back and staked the iceberg lettuce. So no matter which one you picked, they fell down. Oh, I see what you're saying. You were in a grocery store, I'm guessing. So no matter which of the ones you stack, yeah, I stacked the iceberg lettuce. So no matter which one you picked, they fell down. That's pretty hilarious. Thanks for the translation, Vinny. Appreciate it. Old guy syndrome, I guess. Yeah, sounds like he stacked up the lettuce. Yes, mistype. Got it. All right, well, it is getting, wow, it's been, yeah, it keeps going. Time keeps going, imagine that. So I will call it a night. We will hopefully see you all Sunday night. I would appreciate that. And I will have new things to talk about, I'm sure. We'll see what happens over the weekends with the markets. Like I said, Sunday usually is the worst day of the market, which is why I try to do my buys on Sunday mostly, assuming that happens, but we'll see. We shall see. And all right, with all that said, appreciate you guys all being here. And Max Voltage is out, and no tabs were harmed in the making of this live stream. Thanks for the super chat, Rizzo. Why you left out?